the night. Check it out. I'm always kind of fascinated. Every political party in this country just play that tune election time. But the funny thing is, they never play the second verse. So just because they never hear the second verse, I'm going to sing the second verse for them. Differences, there will always be, so that you could be you and I could be me. But that's the damn thing, self, that makes this country sweet. Partner, bring your drum. Let me start a beat. Don't mind that politicky politician. We don't jamming on them because we know the story. Let them fight if they want in this land of the deep. You know what we gonna do? What we gonna do? Come see how we moving, watch how we grooving, see how we float in style. Oh yeah, one lovely nation under a groove. Jesus left the night. Get back to the hidden agenda and the mind bender. They will always do their do. Now we holding hands, now that we holding hands, trying to the promised land. Then could come along too, cause we moving with the power and the glory. See how we flow inside. One lovely nation, heading to salvation. Jesus under a roof. Tell me. Them boys will hit the agenda and the mind bender. They will always do their do. Various smart men and politicians, well, them could come along too, cause we move it with the power and the glory. See how we move inside.
How much could you save by switching your car insurance to Allstate? Well, let's say this is you.
One lovely nation under a groove. The king has met the night. Check it out. I'm always kind of fascinated.
Well, good evening and welcome to Politics 101. David Rudder there. The Ganges has met the Nile. The Ganges has met the Nile. A commentary on the multi-ethnic nature of Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Suriname, and interrogating race and racism, ethnicity in our country. We are, of course, a multi-ethnic region, and Guyana and Trinidad and Suriname are more multi-ethnic than the others as a result of the indentured system that was brought in after emancipation, the end of formal slavery. And as reparations to the plantation owners, they sought cheap labor from Portugal, in particular Madeira, which is an island of Portugal or owned by Portugal, part of Portugal, and Chinese from the Chinese mainland, of course, and of course India coming to the Caribbean, meeting the Africans and Europeans and our indentured people who were here before. That is why Guyana says the land of six races. The land of six races. Not very accurate. not really accurate. We are not a land of 6 races. We're a land of 6 ethnicities. Henry Jeffries here, we had some difficulty with him, but I think he's here. I'm seeing him. A land of 6 ethnicities, because races, races has to do with skin color. And, we have the black race, the white race, the brown race, the yellow race, the red race, what we call the color code. But we are different ethnicities. Ethnicity, of course, is a cultural construct. Race is a political construct. So among Africans, there are different ethnicities. Caribbean Africans are different from African Americans, and African Americans are different from Nigerians ethnically. Ethnically, we are different ethnically. Again, I say, West Indians, African Americans, West Africans, we are different ethnicities. But when you put all of us together, we have the same skin color. Then those ethnicities morph and become race. Black people, right? So we move from African American to black. The same thing with Europeans. Frenchman is a different ethnicity from the English, and the English different from the Irish, and the Irish different from the Romanians. They're different ethnicities. But what do they have in common? White skin color. You put all them together, they become white people. So that's where the construct come in, the construct of race move into ethnicity. And Indians and Bangladeshis and Pakistanis and Sri Lankans, different ethnicities. We put them all together, they're what we call brown people along the color code. So sometimes we get a little tied up with race and ethnicity. So when we say Guyana is a land of 6 races, we're not too accurate, right? We're not too accurate. Maybe what we have there are, black people. You had white people who transported black people. And then you have East Indians who are considered brown. And then you had Native Indians who are considered red people, red Indians as they call them. And then Chinese are considered Asians. I think they are yellow. They're yellow. So you come to think of it, we might have 6 races for real. Portugal is a particular case. Portuguese are really white people, but they were considered to be third-class white people, Portuguese and Spaniards and so on, and Italians, because they mix up, the Moors, and they get a little black in them, so they were considered third-class white people, but they're white people. So technically, we could argue, yes, that we have 6 races, but really there's 6 ethnicities. The thing is that our ethnicities operate like races, in the sense they operate as if they're historical enemies. You follow? As if they're historical enemies. We know white people and black people are historical enemies. One enslaved the other. All right? But, Indians and Chinese and Portuguese and African, they're not historical enemies. They didn't enslave one another. They've had their conflicts, but they didn't enslave. They're not historical enemies. Amerindians and black people had their problems. Amerindians served as slave catchers at one point. And so they've had their problem. But the only historical enemies are black and white people. But the Amerindians and Chinese and Portuguese and black people and white people, we conduct our social relations as if we are historical enemies. And that's where the concept of race comes in. We act like race. We act like we are racially thing. And Dr. Jeffrey, of course, has been talking a lot about that. And his column 2 weeks ago was quite interesting in that he argues that what we need in Guyana is there's need for some kind of mediation and international mediation, something along the lines of what happened in Northern Ireland, which is a similar country to Guyana ethnically, and there was a commission set up by the United States. So Jeffrey saying that Guyana's long crisis shows the urgent need for an independent peace facilitator. Now, the problem with a place like Guyana, and we find this in some of the ethnically divided societies, is that we do not admit that we have a problem. If you talk to the politicians of all the political parties, all of them, the PNC, the PPP, the AFC, the FGM, WPA, we have some of our members, if you talk to them, they all will say we don't have a racial problem. But there's some of us in the WPA who say that we do have a racial problem. And we have confronted it. You go back to Guyana. I'm just talking the modern. Guyana was the first public politician to confront the problem of race publicly and say, look, we have a problem. We don't accept leadership from each other. And so what we need to do is to share the leadership of the country. 1961, he came up with the concept of joint premiership, which is long before Lepart and some of the European scholars began to talk about consociation, which we call power sharing or shared governance. Guyana sensed in 61. And he said, you know, look, let us have a joint premiership between Mr. Burnham and Mr. Jagan. And if we don't do that, we are likely to end up in bloodshed. And so perhaps rather than risk bloodshed, the last resort should be part of the country. People latched on the partition and not the joint premiership, because both Jagan and Burnham didn't admit that the problem was as acute as Guyana admitted. Now, my own sense is I think, and Jeffrey's going to help us here, I think both Jagan and Burnham recognized that it was an acute problem, but they didn't think that it was politically astute to raise it publicly and to try to solve it. They felt that, you know, if we try to bring the people together, but one was trying to bring them together as PPP, and the other was trying to bring them together as PNC. And Guyana is saying, but they don't want to come together under one party. They want their own party. And what we do is create a system where the two parties could govern together. And we came later on in the 2000s, where another generation of political activists and scholars, people like Aubrey Norton, Vincent Alexander, myself, we raised the question again and say, isn't it time for us to try to find a system that will accommodate our division? And again, the question we were asked, how this thing will work? The thing wouldn't work. And I remember Guyana writing something and saying, he has made his proposal 30 years before. He's now allowing young people to carry it forward. But he said, if he wrote a piece called Common Sense About Power Sharing. And he said, if you don't work something, you don't know how it works. And some of us began to do the research. And we discovered there were countries around the world, Switzerland, and some of the European countries were using the system, Suriname and so forth. And so we felt that it could work, and we had made some headway. One of the biggest comforts was Desmond Hoyt. I remember Desmond Hoyt saying, power sharing is protean. I didn't, you know, Hoyt had a way with words, you know. You all think it's only Burnham had a way with words. Hoyt had a way, and he says protean. That the thing makes sense. And I remember one politician who was still alive, you know, because people like myself have become so frustrated because we felt that we could move our country forward. I remember that PNC politician called me and said, David, hold strain. We working on this, man. He gonna come around. He gonna come around. And so it was a joyful day when at the PNC Congress in 2002, Hoyt says power sharing is an idea whose time has come, and committed the PNC to power sharing. And we felt that there was the opening. Jeffrey, I don't think, was a fellow traveler then. But he was to try to bring Corbyn and Jack Dio together for us to realize this dream of power sharing. It didn't play out. It didn't play out. I know Corbyn put his own political career in trying to make the thing work. And it's only when that didn't work that Corbyn then turned to the WPA and said, look, we are arch enemies. But if we can't get the full power sharing with the PPP, at least y'all and we could come together. And out of that came the APNU. Just giving you all a little history. The problem is our politicians generally don't admit that we have a problem. You see, in order to say, let's share this country, we have to admit that we have a problem, that one group don't want to be governed by the other. And so therefore we have to come up with this framework for them to share it. I get beat up on this program over in the last 4 years because a lot of people, I think a majority of viewers here don't agree with power sharing. Partly because they said the PPP beat up black people so bad. Oh, you want to share power with them, Dr. Hines? And Guyana, again, he called me and in his soft way, he said, David, you have to tell them that you're not sharing somebody's power. You're sharing your own power. It's not PPP power or PNC power. We have to get our people to understand that. What they're sharing is their power. They're not sharing PPP's power or PNC power. You know? And so Jeffrey said that what we need is a peace facilitator. And if you're having a peace facilitator, you have to assume that there is war. And I'm with Jeffrey. I think when we finish making all the analysis of Guyana's problems, all the analysis of the elections, I see all the analysis of the 2020 elections, 2025 election, all that happened. You know, the people feel that the APNU didn't do enough and they go and win. They feel that, you know, we didn't have a coalition, so the guy would win. They didn't feel that we were militant enough, so they go away with win, and so on. And people give you all these reasons for the result. And the one fundamental reason, and that is the reason of the ethnic divide. Not many of our politicians are citing it, but it's there. And you look at Indian people, they did not move an inch towards the Black Party or the Win Party, which they consider to be not to be Indian. And the African people didn't move an inch to the PPP. That is a fact. But it's not put in the mix when we're asking what played out in 2025. That's why when Jeffrey wrote that column 2 weeks ago, I said, aha, Jeffrey's taking us back to sanity. You know, because all of the other reasons, and all those reasons are correct. You know, black people felt the thing, you know, PPP, make them impoverished, and they wanted somebody who they feel can deal with the issues, and all of those things are correct. All of those things are correct. You talk to people, they'll tell you a vote win because of that, a vote this because of that. But at the bottom of it all is the ethnic problem, and our politicians don't touch it. And I think I understand. They don't touch it because it's an explosive issue. Now it's an issue that characterizes the society, but it is the most explosive issue. I have always been a race man. That's not never. I come up in an era of race. I come up in a black village where you were, I was about to say you were taught to be black, but I didn't think anybody taught us to be black. You just come up and blackness was all around you. And in the 1970s, when we were talking about a class, and in a sense, I think the WPA type was saying that, look, I think we have made strides in racial unity, and so it is time that we cement that racial unity into a class analysis. And I think we went along, but we were, I was always a race man, despite being a Marxist or pseudo-Marxist, whatever, And so for me, when the PPP began to behave in a certain way, the racial dimension of my politics kicked in. And the crucifixion you get, look at how they crucify myself, Henry Jeffrey, Vincent Alexander, Rickford Burke, who dare to raise the question of race publicly. And they get some traction from it on both sides. There are people on our side of the political who don't want to be on a platform with me. I know it. They find ways to think because they feel that I am toxic and it's not me, because they will have a drink with me, right? They feel race is toxic. And it is the denial of that problem that Jeffrey is going. And Jeffrey is saying, at the end of it, where it's the distribution of resources, the distribution of contracts, the way money is spent by the government, the economics in general, all of it is subsumed in this thing of race. And that's what Jeffrey sought to deal with 2 weeks ago. And I think he has brought us back to sanity. He's here after some difficulty with the technology. Dr. Jeffrey, have I been unfair to you in my introduction? Or misrepresented you?
Hi, David, and hi again to your audience. No, not at all. You see, you want democracy, and but you get people, but how would you stop a government if they win an election? How do you stop them? Look what's happening in America right now. You have enough 70, what is it? About 62% of the people against Donald Trump. When they do their analysis and so on, they are against him, what he's doing. You will never find that in Guyana. Now, Donald Trump got to think about that when he's going forward, because he got to say, an election might be called 62% of people against me. But Guyana does not have what the United States Department said. They set up an investigation in 2021, and they say Guyana doesn't have a united public opinion. Indians go for Indians, Africans go for Africans, and that's it. And they are about, you talk about ethnicity. When I came on, you were speaking to ethnicity. All ethnicity means, I went to Borbis. When I went to Borbis for the first time to campaign, in Indian villages, I am seeing African boys dancing with boys. I never knew that gonna happen.
You mean Indian boys?
No, with African boys and India, they mix up. They are of Indian ethnicity. They live in the Indian areas. And one thing, they live in the Indian areas. Girls are scarce. Girls are not allowed to come out and they party like in African areas. So effectively, Indian boys are dancing with Indian boys and black and so on, and they're dancing with each other. And I was taken back. And it's one of the priests there, later in Donald Ramatala's office, when we were talking, he said, what else do you think? Girls are not allowed to come out to parties like in African village and so on. And therefore, if you got music and you got Indian boys dance with Indian boys, and if you live there as a black boy, you are Indian, you are of Indian ethnicity in terms of that. So you're doing the same thing. You have got accustomed to it. It's a cultural concept, as you rightly say. But I went to that sort of extreme to demonstrate when we talk about ethnicity. So when you say, oh, mixed race, 70% of the mixed race are of African ethnicity. 70% that they want to call this. That's why Africans, when you put them together, when the election is out, they vote African. They vote PNC. And that's what brings the PNC always up to the 50%, because Africans are somewhere about 30%. The normal, real, what we call African black people there, pure would be 30%. So effectively, what we have in Guyana is an ethnic problem. And in most of these countries, with this Northern Ireland you mentioned, the Catholics and the Protestants are the same white people. But they murder each other. There's some 3,000 they've shooting up for years and decades. But they're same white people. One is Catholic of Catholic ethnicity, the other one is Protestant. They have some basic things they want united Ireland, the Catholics want, and then the Protestants want England, Ireland to be still part of the United Kingdom and all that, but they are based essentially on ethnicity. The question for you is, if you don't want to talk ethnic, how are you going to hold the government accountable? How? For the 60 years, you're saying no government accountable. At first, we used to say, oh, it's Burnham dictatorship. Now we have PPP dictatorship. Tell me how. How is it that you plan to hold a government accountable? If 50% of the black people will go and vote for black people, don't matter what they do, because if look what the PPP has done, they've ruined this place. And yet, every Indian almost went to vote for them. So how you hold government accountable? So, and only 2021, the American government set up a team to look at it, and they said, Ghana don't have a public opinion. There is no single public opinion to hold government accountable. So what's the use every minute in the papers? You pick up the papers, we must hold the government accountable. Look what happened. And all these things the PPP do. And every single Indian almost went and voted for them. And every black, as you say, did not vote for them. So we want to hold this government accountable. Somebody got to tell me that. Mm-hmm. And John Stuart Mills, since 1861, don't quite had that. Since 1861, this is not said it. He said, when people are divided like this, they are not fit for democratic government. You are not fit for democratic governance. It's only the 60s, and they just say, what's his name again? Being the father of state government, because he was working in Africa.
Leipart. You mean our
yes,
Arthur Lewis.
Arthur Lewis wrote a book, Define Democracy Properly, and he got a Nobel Prize,
Yeah.
Let me get off here. I think it's these piddly doctors and things you're talking about. He got a Nobel Prize. He says, he defined democracy. He says, essentially, he's called the father of state government. Aldous Leipart and all of these that write more about it. He recognized this dilemma. The British, of course, John Stuart Mill and all them are They are British thing. And they, when elect during the 1950s, they told Jagan, before all this confusion, you have to have shared governance. Well, Jagan had a majority then, he had an Indian majority, and that's perhaps why we're not seeing the census. But the point is, he had a majority then, and he rejected. Not only did he have a majority, but people don't forget, in 1951, he was a dead communist. And he did write the Americans and said he going to carry Guyana and the Caribbean into the communist war. That is why the Americans threw him out. That's why. Because they knew that he wrote a letter. You can't walk from it. If you have communist, you won't have a problem. I got friends that are communists. They say, yes, if he had succeeded, you'd be better off. I said, but if you want to live in a gulag, that's fine. But I don't.
So, Jeffrey, but how is he meshing is ethnicity and it's ethnic politics and it's communist politics? Because communist theory and ideology say race is false consciousness. Yeah. But and so Jagan is saying, I'm taking you to the communist world in 51. He writes in 52 in Forbidden Freedom that Indians are second-class citizens in Forbidden Freedom. So is he straddling both things? What is he doing?
But he had to. You see,
talk to us.
He had to. First of all, remember, communist theory is that the proletariat should rule, will come to power. I mean, essentially, and the proletariat was an urban, more or less, urban group of people. But the Africans were the urban group in Guyana.
Linden
is the working class. Rural group.
Yes.
So, but he found himself this dilemma after thing. And he said, all right, he asked the British Communist Party to find somebody for him. And they found Burnham. They found Burnham for him. And so they found Burnham. Quarrel start from that day. Because when they're writing to Burnham to say he's coming back, they tell him he's going to be chairman of the party and all sort of confusion. And when he come back now, and he took chairman to be the leader.
Because they modeled it off the constitution of the People's National Party in Jamaica, in which the chairman was the de facto leader.
Yeah, but that was always the case before all this leadership. So Burnham think he's going to be leader now. Is the British Communist find Burnham for saying, but Burnham used to have a little British Communist
Yes,
party.
yeah.
So
Jeffrey, hold your thought there. I interviewed Eugenia Charles.
Yeah.
She said, you're a Guyanese. I said, yes. She said, you're a communist like Forbes, Odo? I said, maybe not. She said, well, let me tell you about Odo. Errol Barrow, myself, we live in the same dorm. Yeah. And every Sunday afternoon, the man from the British Communist Party would come. And he come to me. I said, no, me, I'm not a communist. He said, I don't know about Barrow, but Odo would talk with the man. So I wasn't surprised when Odu started wearing a mouth suit as a communist. And I said, Odu, why are you wearing this fancy clothes? Aren't you supposed to be the proletariat? And she said, you want me to say that in public? So indeed, the Communist Party are the ones that founded Burnham and recruited him to come back here. I think we have lost Jeffrey for a minute there. His video. Hope he comes back on. There might be a blackout or something based on what I'm seeing on the screen here. But yes, Eugenia Charles told me that story. And so the thing is that Jagan was a communist, but he's also making an ethnic argument in Forbidden Freedom, saying that Indians are second-class citizens. And so the question of ethnicity as a problem, race as a problem in Guyana, goes right back. And it's present here today. But Jagan, Burnham, come right through to these ones today. All of them sought to downplay the problem. And the problem has persisted to this day. And I'm arguing we can solve all the other problems in Guyana. If we do not solve the problem of the racial divide, the ethnic divide, we are not going to move our country. And that is what Jeffrey is saying, that we want an international peace facilitator. Because there's a racial Cold War that's going on in Guyana. It exploded in the 60s, and it became a hot war. And every now and again it will flare up, especially around election time. It become hot. And we say, well, race only comes about at election time. No, race gets hot at election time. But it's there in between the elections. And our leaders cannot confront the racial problem. They look at it, they say, we have a class problem, the rich versus the poor, they're correct. We have a problem of country versus tongue, they're correct. We have a gender problem of women being oppressed, they're correct. But very few of us come out and say, above and beyond that, we have a racial problem. Women and men never went to war and killed one another over politics. Gender is an issue. We have a gender issue in Guyana, gender disparity. But men and women never went to war as man and woman, a man party versus a woman party, and they went to war and killed one. That didn't happen. We didn't have the working class and the upper class going to war and killing one another, but we had Indians and Africans going to war and killing each other. And as a society, we keep ignoring that. As soon as you see some Africans move to win from the PNCs, APNU, we say, oh, race is done. Racial, and that is our problem. Race is not done. They didn't vote for what they perceived to be the Indian party. They didn't go there. I saw Mohammed and Melanie, I think, today, and African people are talking to him. They're not abusing APNU, they're abusing PPP. They vote against APNU, some of them. But when they're talking to Mohammed, they're not condemning APNU, they're condemning PPP. And that is the race that is coming out there. No Sabi, not PPP. And it's not for want of trying. The PPP try to buy them, try to do all kinds of things. And so we do have this racial, I tell you, wherever I go, I think I wear several hats. I stand up for poor people. I stand up for black people. I am a kind of cultural activist, steeped in African culture, where it be African music, etc., etc. But when I go anywhere in the country, both Indian people and African people, the first thing they identify me for is my defense of African people. African people, the first thing they say, Dr. Hinds, thanks for what you're doing for black people. I'm sure they know of all the other things that I do. But the first thing they congratulate me for, I'm telling you, during the campaign, when we go to those campaign meetings, I would walk through the audience, and some of my WPA comrades would walk with me, Indian comrades, African comrades, and they can attest. People recognize me for my standing up for African people. And then they go to the other things and so on, right? So I'm saying, as Jeffrey's saying, that this wishing away of race is really part of the big problem in Guyana, because we are suppressing the real issue. And Jeffrey's saying, we cannot continue to do it. We have to find a way. We have to find a way to solve this problem. And he's saying, look, let us bring an international peace commission. And you cited the Northern Ireland experiment, that it was something that was launched by Bill Clinton, etc., etc. So Clinton is accepting that there is an ethnic problem, in a racial problem, ethnic problem in Northern Ireland. And then he moves, send George Mitchell, former Senator Mitchell. He said, you go and work on that problem. Jeffrey, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you about that. I don't know what happened there.
That's all right. We're walking it through.
No, but as I was saying, you know, if you want democratic governance, you must have a level of public opinion that would force the government to do something. A government can't still think all the people going to vote for them, because no matter what the PPP do, and perhaps the PNC too, you'll be seeing it. You can do it like, for the most part, and your people voting for you. How you going to have democracy then? The same thing in Ireland. It was the same thing in there. And therefore, you have to, then when you have a system like that, indeed, when you have large ethnic groups generally, you have to put in place a system that takes all of them into consideration in decision making. Sir Arthur Lewis said it. He said, you can't have a large group of people and then tell them about majority rule. You can win by one vote and do what you like, and they don't mean anything. And that's what the PPP now can't even do a free and fair election, because people, they think PPP tells you clearly, oh, we put that in our manifesto. But that's your manifesto, it's not mine. And your manifesto only got to 40% of the people in this country. So what happened to the mine? And you think because you got your people voting for you, even if they were 50%, still what happened to my 49? The British Constitution is actually, because it's an homogeneous country, the British Constitution is all actually set up to make sure that the party that wins must understand it's only part of the country you win on. And therefore, in committee stages, as you are there, you got a committee stage that after what the government wants, it placed before the parliament. The second reading is a reading of principle. And you might get up and say, because I'm against this thing of principle. It's wrong for the country. It cannot thing on that. But even after you finish there, the British committee constitutional arrangements take you to a committee stage. It's at the committee stage that we have to sit down now and see, yeah, but I could have been wrong, and we work out something that is useful to both of us. Because after all, you with 50% or 52%, you are not the whole country, and you are not wiser than anybody else because you got in your manifesto. Your manifesto, people only voted for your manifesto. It's only part of the country, and you're supposed to govern the whole country. So we sit down at committee stage, and you sit there and you have to make concessions. I maybe pass more in social services, serious social service legislation than anybody in that period and so on. And Jagana always used to say, no bill over 6 pages long must just be passed like that. You got to sit down with other people and talk and discuss it. And every bill, from the trade union recognition bill that I passed, all of these bills, I am telling you, I went to committee stage. We sit down, the PNC puts it, if you want so on, and we quarrel and oh, it can't be done. And I can't remember on one of those bills, there were 7 of them. I can't remember ever having to say, not listening to people are not taking their views and put it in because they're not against Guyana. They're not against Guyana. They might have a different perspective of a particular issue. But if it's not something that is totally destructive to my concept or to the ministry's concept of what should be a labor bill or something, it's all right if that's what you think and so on. But today, the PPP just walk in a carpet. They ain't even talking to the opposition under some spurious, nonsensical issue, like they forget they didn't shake me hand, or they said that I rig election. When they said you PNC rigged the 2015 election, did they? Did any PNC grade just say it against here? But no, there's not a reason that they talk to because they don't want to talk to. They want to behave like a dictatorial government, and they did. And by the end of the day, not Jeffrey.
So Dr. Jeffrey, here is the story. You have called for an international peace facilitator.
Yeah.
There are two aspects to that. First, one, that we need to facilitate. We need to mediate this problem. That's the first thing. The second thing, you call for an international facilitator. Why not a national facilitator?
Oh, no. Everybody in this place is biased one way or another. Don't worry this thing. Don't worry. And nobody, the minute you open your mouth, they're going to say you're biased. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I think I'm not biased. But if people, the minute you open your mouth, you're going to say, oh, you're the thing. Yeah, you're biased. The truth of the matter is not only an international facilitator, but you need one like John Shell. That was secretary. You need a big wig like that in the thing to come and say, here, this thing been going on for nearly 3/4 of a second. Y'all gotta sit down now and try to get something going because you ain't got anything going to great. And that is why you need an international mediator of serious credentials, not just any old mediator coming but of serious credentials. Because what is taking place here? And by the way, that article that they printed of me, I wrote in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate to write it now because of anything. Yes, PPP last. Go back at the bottom, you'll say written in 2022.
Yeah.
Good. So this is not because PPP, the PNC lose elections, PNC don't like me, PPP don't like me, I don't care. The truth is that you have to get a system that can hold government accountable. How do you do it if all the major parties with the major population thing are just voting for them? Don't matter what the PPP do, don't matter what the PNC do, their party thing. No change in the system. So you got a massive rigging campaign going on for that little middle thing there. So you come over, you get some percent, or try to ingratiate yourself or do something to get a little 51%. It will not do. You can't manage a country and leave out the concerns of 40% of the people. More than that. But you can't do that. So that's why we need this thing. And as I said, that article, see what they said at the bottom. Because I wouldn't write once a fortnight. I do a bit writing just what I do. And that is 2022 when the PNC was not. When the PNC had just lost office.
Let's switch gears a little, Dr. Jeffrey, because your last article this week, zeroed in on an issue that you've belabored, an issue that you have looked at in several of its dimensions, and that is the relationship between governance and the need for domination. And that you're arguing that the quality or lack of quality of democratic governance in Guyana is a direct result of the need for domination, whether it's political domination, ethnic domination, or whether it's political domination that got ethnic consequences, or how much you frame it, you have been saying that at some point in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, the first decade of the 21st century, that the PPP made a conscious decision.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Talk.
yes. No. There's no doubt about that. The PPP, they made a conscious decision that since they're not going to have shared governance, what they will need, and they accept, is like Israel, they accept that they're going to get black votes easily. They determine that here, if we impoverish black people, they will be forced to, we can then go and bribe them to vote for us. And that is the party. When you sit down all day telling them, oh, we want what? A universal income, that is inimical to the interest of us. A universal basic income, you can give it to everybody here. And you got to give them at a certain point of time, then you can't easily go to black, you can't easily destroy the black people ethnic, their economic base as they have done. They have done it in all throughout the trade unions that black control. No collective bargaining. They want you 5% when the inflation rate. That Janet Jackson used to say. The increase should have been inflation rate and growth in the economy. That should be the basis for this course. But they have done that. They destroyed the Linden Pension Fund. They have done every single thing. So when you say now you want cash grant, they want to wake up in the morning and cash grant and say, be a good boy. I think our fan said something like that.
Yes, if you behave yourself.
When you behave yourself. What behave yourself mean? When you vote for the PP, you get cash grant. Now they've made you poor enough that Mohammed threw some money at you and something. And in my view, they give him the money to throw at you. So they effectively publish you, but still black people don't vote for them.
That's right.
It shows. So effectively, it's because they want to dominate the political scene that you find yourself in this problem. Bad governance result. They got to be a dictatorial government. No, I am certain they themselves must be shocked to wake up and see that people will tell them cleared out that the election was not free. And nobody else coming on, no, certainly not in the West coming on their side. The election is not free, therefore it can't be fair.
Dr. Jeffrey, you zeroed in on something that the opposition is trying hard to get into the consciousness of people. And it's taken a little while, but it's there. And that is the question of poverty and growth in the economy. I met with some Bostonian/Guyanese when I passed through Washington, D.C., Maryland recently. And the first thing people ask, man, how you all dealing with the development in the country? There's development in the country. You all don't feel that you all need to cooperate with the PPP and get some of that development for your people? And then, you say to them, but there is 48% poverty. And recently, one of the international institutions said it's as high as 58%. So what development are you talking about? And then people sit back, And you make that point in this week's article about how poverty plays into the lack of democratic governance. And you said it just now that, you impoverish people and then you go to them and try to buy their votes. And then Mohammed go and he buy, and the money he get to buy, you give it to him in the first place. You're only going to hear that here on Politics 101. But talk about poverty, the high poverty rate in Guyana, and how that affects the quality of governance, affects the quality of democracy.
But I told you, you only have that high quality poverty rate. You got so much money because you are causing the poverty deliberately to keep yourself in power. It's you. That's why you can't go to the people and tell them you. Even like Suriname, the small amount they give, but they're giving you money regularly. You can put your bottom dollar on it, and you can save it. You can develop with it. Not in Guyana. The PPP wake up one morning and say, "Oh, we can give them some cash grant today." They behave themselves, and then you ain't behave yourself, or they don't behave yourself. Then they don't give you anything. Long ago, even if not at a given level, but you could have introduced a cash grant. You should have long done an analysis, say what kind of poverty exists and how to deal with it, and put it in the public domain long term, but they can't, because poverty, to keep you poor, is a motive. It's an important motive for them, because if you get poor, they're running after pennies and cents, and they give you all sorts of petty contracts, and you think you're a big one in the villages because you got a little bit more money than the other people, when they're doing these things on purpose. And the result is that you cannot have a proper poverty program, because then you got to deal with everybody. You got to sit in law. It's not you wake up in the morning. God said every month, every day, every year, every 10 years, X will come to it, and you can plan a little bit for what you got. But they can't do it, because all the time, since about 2000, the PPP had one strategy: impoverish black people, so to force them to vote for it, because there's no other way. And even that way now didn't work. So, they and Mohammed, we got better and see how this whole thing play out. We got to wait. So effectively, that is what has occurred. And everybody knows now the transparency, so they capture the state and doing what and doing what they like with it. What that means? They have captured the state. It's not the European Union just come. The VDM said, maybe the best index says they are now elected autocracy, like Maduro. So they sit down and talk about Maduro, and they drive us right into that. What? I think, you mentioned ethnicity and race, and you ask a question right in front of how Chadden plan to square race and ethnicity. Well, Cherry Jagan did not believe that race is the major problem. Cherry Jagan believed in the economic class. It was a class, man. So he's saying, but after the Americans start supporting Burnham, he hasn't got nothing else to keep the Indians with than to point to Burnham, Africans, and all that. I want to end up into a whole bunch of race. See, you have to, but his notion was, when he comes to power, it's going to be a classist too, and he's going to get rid of that racist. You're going to dissipate. But that is what they don't understand. Who was it that wrote the book called The End of History? Fukuyama.
Fukuyama, yes.
Fukuyama wrote a book called The End of History, and Huntington says, no. History not going to end like this. The new dynamics we will have in the world are cultural, ethnic dynamics, and we are seeing it all over the world.
All over
the world.
All over. And when Obama came to office in America, they said we have come to the end of race.
Yeah.
And then we saw what Obama election did was to ignite race in a more vicious way than before Obama got elected. You know, and in Guyana, you have those condrels who are talking about the end of race.
Oh, no, because only Indian people and Indian they support us. They talk about the end of race. When they tell other people vote race. Oh, no. They're only trying to con you. It's another con game. Oh, the race is finished. Oh, we won election. Like people buying votes up and down the country. You doing well, like with election commission. You go pass rules to change election laws that is not consensual. I mean, how? But they got the Indian people, the propagandists. Most of them are who running out there say, "Oh, racist," and we're racist. And no, you were the major protagonist, and you and I know black vote. Only 1,000 in Region 10 vote more for you, maybe Africa. And you said that you're going to turn the place red. Remember what it said? So, I mean, you have to face it. Once you got the racial thing, particularly like in Ghana, it's only about 5-6 countries in the world like us, you know. That's why I say it's quite an interesting place to be and to talk. I told Jerry Jagger, I said, when he tell me all this economics and how new world order and all sort of thing, I said, Jerry, you know, most politicians want to get Nobel Prize and things. Jerry wants it. Well, why not? He should get a Nobel Prize. Mandela got one, right? Mandela got for the apartheid. So I said, Mandela got for the apartheid. You got a problem worse than Mandela here. And you should try to solve it. But he already run into economics. He believed that once the economic situation changed, the other things will change.
Yes.
You know, I told him so. And I had to tell my friends the same Saturday afternoon. I just told Cherry that if he wanted Nobel Prize, he should deal with the racial situation, because every country like us in the world has had this problem. Look at Cyprus. Cyprus up to now, although they call it one country, divided according to ethnicity, Greek and Cypriot. Yeah. So you have to set up arrangement. First of all, when you write in a constitution, substantially all of us got to agree on it. It is not, I think Madison and you was quarreling with some when they were writing the U.S. Constitution, saying, if you're writing a U.S. Constitution, everybody should agree. They were saying. But then we come to this thing about substantially all of us. You can't get a constitution that only suits 50% or 60% of the people. It's not a constitution. It leads to rule by law, not rule of law. And that is precisely, indeed, that's precisely what the people are doing. They're ruling you by law, not rule of law, because they can change it, do it what they like any one time. It's not rule of law, or else they shouldn't be able to do that.
Explain the difference between the two concepts there.
Well, the two concepts are quite clear. In the sense that rule by law means you can make any law and tell me there's a law and I got to do. But you can tell overnight to suit yourself. So you don't have to even live by that law. And who helps you in that? And then you got the judiciary by you got all that. So you are just mama guy. Rule of law means that if you want to give people some grants, you must put it in law. And everybody, it's expected by people. Not every morning you wake up, oh, I'm giving them, or I'm not giving you no more. No, it must be there. People must have certainty, then they can invest, then they can know what they're doing in the future. But they don't want you to get more in the future economically. And that's why when it got to a stage when people can get up and say the PPP, even maybe the most ignorant person can get up and say that the PPP are trying to develop apartheid state. I mean, people, That's precisely what they've been trying to do. And so people know that that's what they've been trying to do. They control everything.
I can't let you go, Henry,
Rule of law.
without asking your view on a couple of things. First, the APNU, they're on the streets. They squared the revolution yesterday, demonstrating, calling on the government to meet its promise for cash transfers for Christmas. Good move.
No. Cash grant for Christmas because people gone to expect it. But for me, this cash grant must be, they must set up a system to tell people when they're going to have grants. And yes, everybody at a certain age should get it, and you're going to say, if you never came for it, you got 2 years to come for it or whatsoever, and you'll get it. Not you got to call this person, do this and all of that. So yes, but that is only for now. What you need is a proper system to address poverty in Guyana. And but we're going to get there because largely that's going to destroy the whole PPP project in making you poor. Yeah, at least you're going to undermine it seriously, of making you poor so that they can get your votes. You're not get it. Look how long you're talking about it. Any sensible country, the amount of money, never run on them billion road, giving hard contracts to all sorts of any country, any proper democratic government that people that can hold accountable would want to give people money. Which government go to election when the people are getting poorer? In a democratic, when everybody say that these people are getting poorer, but they can do it because you don't hold them, you can't hold them accountable. Because regardless of what they do, supporters go and vote for them. If they keep you poor as long as they like you, they're supposed to go and vote for them.
The Attorney General said that the PPP does not intend to swear in Mohammed as the opposition leader, because to swear in a fugitive as an opposition leader as part of the larger government structure would put Guyana in danger. Your thoughts?
Two things to say here. You just ask about the rule of law and the rule by law. That is the rule by law. There is the rule by law. He made a law, and if the law says Mohammed can't go, he's saying we are not going to deal with it. But you see, effectively, he shouldn't be saying that. But they control everything. They control the judiciary, they control everything. So when he tells you that, the first thing I would say, well, we're not going to see what's going to happen. I told you 2 weeks ago, let me look at the end game. The end game is that Mohammed had given them everything they would have. Give them region 4. You can almost give them region 10 if not. And they must got to give something too. So let me see. Because so much bribery and corruption about all these processes, even internationally. You're going to hear, all right, the courts might well have said that they can't go, but the Attorney General did say they would not allow it. But the court said it, so what can the Attorney General do? But what turned out there? Once again, they win. Once again, they win. Because Mohammed won't go, although the Attorney General said he should go. Where you want the Attorney General if the court says so? Yeah, the rule.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight. I notice I notice you all like rule of law versus rule by law. That's our headline for tomorrow morning's newspaper coming out of Politics 101. That's the Politics 101 headline: rule of law versus rule by law. You heard it first on Politics 101 by Dr. Henry Jeffrey. Dr. Jeffrey, thank you very much for coming through. And I think your exhortation that let's wait and see how this whole thing gonna play out. Yeah, last night I said, let me watch the ride. We're on the same page, you know, on this thing. We shall see. Thank you very much, my brother.
Thank you very much, your audience.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight. And I say over and over on this program that we do our propaganda. You know, you all know that I'm a partisan person. I belong to a political party. My party belongs to a coalition, the APNU, a partnership. And so you're going to get some partisanship. You're going to get. But I did not develop politically on partisan propaganda. That I get to where I am today because although I was partisan, I was exposed to an analysis that went beyond the party. And it's only fair that now that I have a sort of a voice, that I do the same thing. That there is a place for our partisan analysis. But there is a place for an analysis that goes wider than our party and includes our party, but wider than the party. And I think to understand our country, Guyana, we have to do that. And one of the difficulties with our politicians, our political leaders, is that we don't go wide enough outside of our partisan comfort zone. That is, we don't look at ourselves from the outside. We only look at ourselves from the inside. If we were to look at ourselves from the inside and look at ourselves from the outside, there are a lot of things we will pick up that we wouldn't pick up. Our politics are a complex politics. Guyana is never an easy place. Dr. Jeffrey said there are only 5 or 6 countries like Guyana in the world. So it's not like we have a big reference pool. There are only 4 or 5 countries like Guyana. And all of those countries have taken steps to deal with the fundamental problem. Guyana is the only one that has not taken steps. And that is why we are in the crisis. Our neighbor in Suriname, they recognize that they have a fundamental problem of ethnic division, and they've taken steps. Northern Ireland has taken steps. Switzerland. I remember during the crisis of the 1980s, Mugabe relented and agreed to a government of national unity, a power-sharing government in Zimbabwe, in Kenya. After 2 elections where there was political violence between the Kikuyus and the Luos and so on, the 2 major leaders, Kenyatta and Odinga, agreed to a power-sharing government. The other countries that have the problems like Guyana agree. I think Cyril Walker is saying, but the UC taught us the global approach to our thinking. And you're right. Coming up under the Guyanas of the world, you could be partisan, but they wouldn't allow you to believe the world can only be seen through one lens. Wouldn't allow you. And that is what I try to do on this program. Sometimes people think that I've lost my marbles, I'm not partisan enough. I am partisan. But I'm not imprisoned by our partisan, and I don't think we should be imprisoned by our partisanship. One-dimensional politics is dangerous. Very dangerous. Because when that dimension doesn't yield the result, you are left hanging. Again, action is a teacher. Some people are saying, APNU, I didn't vote for you because when you were in power, you did nothing. One dimension, as Terence Campbell would argue, calls them dimension. Another set, say we didn't vote for you because you all didn't come together as a coalition. Second. Another one said, we didn't vote for you all because you all didn't oppose the PPP rigorously. Third. Another said we didn't vote for you all because Norton was not presidential enough. Fourth. Another set saying we didn't vote for you all because you all did not represent black people as black people. That is the voice that is not as loud as the others because race is a ticklish thing. So they're not sure, but that's a very important dimension. And then when you look at those 5 things or 6 things, 6 reasons that people didn't vote for APNU, either they stay home or they voted for win. You have to find something that bring all of those things together. You have to find something. It's not one. If you come to the conclusion that, you know, people migrated home and stay home, or they migrated to win because of one of those things, you're in trouble. We have to find a way to bring them all together. And when you bring them together, you see the larger picture. And you're able then, as we move forward, to be able to address the fundamental problem. I disagree with the knee-jerk action. Oh, well, you know, the problem is the PNC party. Well, there may be, because people are saying that we have a problem with the PNC party. But the way you deal with it is to go and rebuild the PNC. Well, I don't know what that means. I do not know what it means. Some people are saying, well, you know, you all got to go and build party groups. In the old days, when you joined a party group, there was something to do. You joined the party group, you used to have to study. You know, you gone to the party school. You gone and you're sharing out pamphlets. You go in and organize people and so on. Those days have passed on. We're not into a party group era. Back in those days, there wasn't much to do. You come from work, you go to the party group meeting. You come from work today, there is social media. There is all those things. The 1,000,001 social media influence of the world has changed. People have other things to do, so the party group as we know it is not the same. Yet people instinctively are saying, you know, you have to build the party groups and so on and things. We have to understand changes and then adapt your politics to the changes. What we have to do is that we have to look after our people. That's the great lesson here. The old politics say when you get power, you have to look after everybody. That's the old politics. The new politics say when you get power, you look after everybody. And within the context of looking after everybody, you have a space in there for looking after the people who vote you into power. So you're adjusting the meaning of governing for everybody. You still govern for everybody. But you make sure you look after the people who vote you in, because the people who vote you in a winner-take-all system, are saying that, look, we are voting you to look after our interests. Political theory said that when you get power, you must govern for all. So you have to recognize that. And you have to find a way to govern for all. You have to find a way to look after your people without derailing the principle of governing for all. It's not going to be easy. But you have to find a way to balance the two. To govern for all, but to look after your people. I think that's the great lesson for the APNU. Because when people say when you were in power in 2015, 2020, you don't do anything for me, basically that it's not necessarily true. You did things for them in a general way. There were things that African people, Amerindian people benefited from under the APNU. But what they're saying is that there was not something with our name specifically on it. So we didn't do a good job of balancing the general with the particular. Amerindians need things in a certain way because they're living mostly in the hinterland. And their needs have to address, taking into consideration the hinterland. The particular, even as you do the general. African people, because of our historical problem, our historical dispossession, the state, the government has to be more proactive in leveling the playing field to bring Amerindians and Africans up. So the state has to have a particular attitude to Amerindians and Africans. East Indians, because of their historical entry into Guyana, they came with some agency. Their religion was intact, their identity intact to some extent. So even as they were oppressed, they were not dispossessed of identity and culture. It was easier for Indians and Portuguese and Chinese brothers to get into the private sector. There were laws that prevented Africans and Amerindians from getting into the private sector. They raised real estate when black people start buying land. All of a sudden, the price of land start go up. Our Indian and Portuguese and Chinese brothers did not have the same kind of barriers. So it was easy for them to get into the private sector, the commercial sector. And so there is a particular way in which you deal with Indian problematic. When you go to an Indian village, they're not talking to you about public service wages. They're talking about rice and sugar. They're talking about commerce. When you go to African community, you're talking about commerce, but you're talking about how to get into the commercial space. Indians are not talking about how to get into the commercial space. They're talking about how to expand what they have in the commercial space. Yet we persist with the nonsense of believing we can only govern with one tide lifts all. We have to govern both. And that is my message. That is the message of my party. We have to govern both. We have to study our society, recognize the disparities in the society, recognize there is wealth, but there is disparity in wealth. There is poverty, but the poverty manifests itself differently. If you live in Albaistong or Tiger Bay, you can't plant no kitchen garden. You can plant Bora and Ballinger and pumpkin. You live in the countryside. You're able to do that. If you're planting rice, you're planting some, and so to attach a kitchen garden to your rice thing becomes easier than if you're in the African community, you're a teacher. You wake up 4 o'clock in the morning for cook for your children and your husband and so on. You go to school, you teach till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you're hustling the lesson. Where you won't find time to plant a garden. I hear people say, well, black people need to plant. Of course, black farmers need to be encouraged. But you don't expect a teacher, a public servant who got left Golden Grove and go down to Georgetown, walk all day, go to the car park, God wait, get home at 8 o'clock in the night, where he or she is going to plant garden. Even if they plant the garden, they don't have time to even water the garden. Sometimes we are being unrealistic. What we need is black farmers, farmers in the black villages. And here is where the APNU, in introducing the RATE project, they were heading in that direction. And the PPP came in and they broke it up. And then tell black people, go back to the land. And you're not facilitating going back to the land. And then some black people who don't think the thing through, oh, black people don't plant garden. When I was a child going into school, we had school gardens. And I remember we as little boy, because we had school garden, the gardening thing was in our head. So when you go home, every one of us, at least the boys, some of the girls too, but at least the boys, all of us had a little kitchen garden in the yard at home. Because at school, we were taught the value, not just at a theoretical level, at a practical level of what gardening is. So you had the school garden, and then you go home and you get your little garden with your 3-4 beds at home. So unless we recognize the diversity in our society and understand that each group has its own particularity, and so we have to address development in that way. Rule by law and rule of law. That is why when the reverend go to Buxton and tell them the law say that you can't compensate people who are on government land or government, reserve, I think is the term they use. The law, and that's what Jeffrey means, that they're engaging in the rule by law and not the rule of law. The rule of law says that if you are building a public convenience that is inconveniencing people, something is wrong with it. The way to go about it is to balance public convenience with people's economic convenience. But if you're building a public convenience via a road and you are destroying people's right to make a living, you are not doing development. And that is what I am saying to Reverend. You can't go to poor people and tell them the law said this. That is ruled by law. Because the law said, no, these people are there, they're trying to make a living. You're saying they can't be there anymore, and you're not giving them the proper compensation. And it's not just about giving them some money in their hand, but giving them enough money that the loss that they will take, the immediate loss that they will take, because this road is going there, they will get enough money that wherever they're relocating, they'll be able, for the 6 months that it will take for them to build up back the clientele, they will get enough compensation to roll them over. Oh God, if me and study economics. You are the government and you don't know that. And that is the kind of representation I intend to make for our people. And they would not want that they don't want to deal with that. And that is why I bring it here public. I've not heard back from the Reverend since early last month. I've not heard back from him. When those people move from the drive-by market, where they're making the money by people driving by, and you're moving them to a place where they're losing thing because there's no drive-by, they don't have that drive-by now. So they have to depend on another form of marketing. It will take them time to readjust to the new form, the new position. Give them some compensation to hold them over. And that is what I wanted to talk to the Reverend about. The market is a long-term project. The question of going to a market in Buxton has long left our culture in the villages. Because apart from Golden Grove, which I think has a fairly thriving market, in the African communities, we have not had markets for a long time on the East Coast and West Coast and so on. So the marketing culture is not there. So if you're going to build a market, welcome. Yes, we welcome it. But it will take time for people to adjust to the presence of a market. It will take time for people to be able to go there and sell the things and people to go there and buy. So a market is a long-term, medium to long-term. While the market is being kicked in, people have to live. And it is government who has to ensure that that happens. People are not begging. They're not begging. It is the government who has to think it through. And I am adopting an attitude that I am prepared to work with community leaders and government leaders to ensure that people are not taken advantage of and that people get their just reward. People can get contract to build a school at Bamia and contract to build pump across the river, and they're not delivering. Whole heap of government money already advanced to them. And when you come to give a couple $100,000 to ordinary people so that they can continue to make a meager living, you're telling them what law. Why the hell you don't go and tell the contractors at Bamia about law? All the Manichan is saying, oh, we will not tolerate this and so on. But you're not going in and tell them about the law. But you're going and tell somebody who's selling at the road corner about what the law says. You can't compensate them because they're on a government reserve. Heartless. Heartless. And I'm saying this here publicly. I said to Reverend, look, I don't want us to conflict. I know when it's time for conflict. There's time for conflict and there is time to work together. Because our people can't eat conflict. But this thing to dominate. Our government has to be forced. And this is where the confrontation will come. Because I intend to confront the ministers. And we in the APNU intend to do that. Confront them so that they can do right by our people. I don't agree with cash grants for individuals, only for individuals 18 and over. I don't agree with it. I think there should be cash grants for each household. That brings in everybody. Or if you decide that you only want to give it to individual, carry it back to age 14 or 15. But even as I'm fighting for that, even as we are fighting for that, we are saying the one that you have in place now, 18 years and over, pay out on it. Pay out on it. Because our people need it. But once you finish pay out on it, let's fix it to make sure that we are not in this scenario anymore. It's not always what you believe in. It is about what people want. What you believe in may not necessarily be what they want. Certainly not at the present time. Our people want money. And so, sisters and brothers, let us fight for this new culture. And you all have to give us the support. Be critical of us. Always. Be critical of me. Be critical of all of us. But also support us. Being in opposition in a winner-take-all system is hell. In Jamaica, each parliamentarian is given a certain amount of money to do developmental projects in their constituency. In Jamaica. In Jamaica. And Jamaica ain't got plenty of money like Guyana. But each parliamentarian is given money to develop projects in their community. Why can't we not do that in Guyana? Why can we not do that in Guyana? So that people have different entry points to government through the parliamentarian, through central government, through the NDC council. They have different entry point to government. And that's what we're talking about. So we are going to pursue these issues. We are going to confront the government. Different political parties will take different strategy. And they all will add up at the end of the day. Some parties will go and listen to people and walk away and do nothing. Some parties will go to listen to people and then attempt to do something. I will fight the PPP. Ding dong. But I will also seek to make the PPP make resources available to my constituency. I will not collaborate with the PPP. I will not collaborate with the PPP. But I will lobby the PPP to give our people what belongs to them. Let me repeat. I will fight the PPP ding dong because they're an illegitimate government. Ding dong. I will not collaborate with the PPP for nothing. But I will lobby the PPP as the government to bring resources to our constituency. You may say, well, Dr. Hines, how you going to do all? Well, that's why you all send us to school. And that's why you all elect us. We got to figure out the nitty-gritty. We got to figure the nitty-gritty out. That's why you all send us to school, and that's why you all elect us. To take complex things and to break them down in a way that we can bring relief to our people. We are moving on. It's not going to be business as usual. It's not going to be rule by law. It will be the rule of law. Thank you, Henry Jeffrey. That's the Politics 101 headline. I'll see you all tomorrow when we come back for another edition of Politics 101. Love you all. Love you all. I'm trying to find the young man. He was a cameraman at the Linden the Linden rally of the APNU, who came up to me and said he's voting for the APNU because he realized that it's not every day a politician says to people, I love you. I shook his hand and I say, thank you for that vote. You move away from those instances and you engage in introspection to know that you have added one more vote and maybe others. But you know that at least one vote from that Linden rally is coming our way because one of us had the courage to say, I love you. I love you all. Always. Always. Always.